Welcome to Am I Famous Yet? Memoir of a Working Class Rock Star. This is chapter 23 called OMG, You're Fired. I am an officially licensed soul music bass player. I have literally traveled all over the world backing a whole bunch of rhythm and blues stars who became famous during the heyday of the 1960s soul music craze. I adore it. It is fantastic music and pure joy to play. One of these soul legends, and I've worked for a lot of them, has fired me not once, not twice, but several times. There are probably 3 or 4 firings that I know about for sure, and likely a couple of others that I just never heard about because I was rehired before I even knew I was fired. One of the occasions involved this legend recording a new album with a new producer and a new record label. The next logical step was to replace me and get a new live band. Fair enough. It wouldn't have shocked me. The music business moves that way often. A more famous band leader than I was hired out on the West Coast. Everything was given the green light and ready to go until said band leader named his retainer price for putting together a completely new live act from scratch, $30,000. Yowza, they said. Hey, why don't we call Ivan? Mind you, I had already been the music director for this legend for a number of years, working more cheaply than I can assure you. Now I had to get flown out to the West Coast to meet the new producer to basically audition for the gig that I already had. It was just a meet and greet, but I got my job back that I hadn't even realized that I had lost. Even though I was the new man for the old job, they did want the band retooled a bit. Remember the story about Kevin, the band leader from the earlier chapter about Shirley Alston Reeves, original lead singer of the world-famous Shirelles, who gave me my first big gig in New York based on nothing more than a second-hand recommendation? He and I had become very close friends and had worked together in countless situations for about a dozen years by this point. We were tight, personally and professionally. When I got the gig music directing for the Soul Legend, I hired Kevin on guitar in the band. Now, I was told in no uncertain terms by the management that Kevin was not to be a part of the retooled new band. It put me in a bad spot, to be sure, but I had also been around the business enough by this time to know that it wasn't anything personal. It was just business for whatever management perceived the need to be, misguided or otherwise. I didn't agree with the decision and fought them on it, but to no avail. Kevin was out, and I was to be the one to break the news to him. I fired him as a guitar player. In return, he fired me as a human being. After hours and hours of heated discussion about the situation, it basically came down to the fact that Kevin felt that I should have resigned in protest over his firing. I told him in no uncertain terms that if the situation were reversed, I would never allow him to quit on my behalf. People get fired in this business all the time. That's just what happens. He hasn't spoken to me since. It's been 14 years. Another time I got fired from the same Soul Legends gig was when we played a late-night major network TV appearance promoting this same new album. This was in the very early days of YouTube. People really didn't have it figured out back then. The networks didn't have their own on-demand rebroadcast links either. A certain faction of the old-school music business saw YouTube and outlets like it as bootlegging because it wasn't yet monetized in any way, and I get that. My perspective on it at the time was that it was my first time appearing on national network television. I wanted a way to be able to show the clip to my family and friends and anyone else who wanted to see it, yet who hadn't been awake or tuned into that particular network at 1:30 a.m. on a school night. I uploaded our 3-minute music performance portion of the show to YouTube. Band management found out about it. I was so fired. This time it was with screaming and threatening phone calls. Oh, it was ugly. I took the clip down and retreated to my house to lick my wounds. Within weeks, I got a call from the management about the next gig. It was as if nothing had happened. Apparently, I was unfired and didn't even know about it. A few years later, after the YouTube had gained some credibility, another former band member uploaded the very same video clip. I believe it's up there to this day if you can find it. It's not easily searchable. I guess making it a little harder to find was the main lesson I learned there. Like I said, I don't actually know how many times I've been fired from that gig. I know about 3 or 4 of them for sure. I expect there may be others that I never found out about. Most of the time, a firing merely involves the fact that you just don't get called for the next gig that an artist does. This can be due to any number of circumstances that may have nothing to do with you as a player or as a person. The business just moves in mysterious ways. I've been not called back for gigs. I've been fired via very cordial telephone calls, which were aimed at keeping me friendly should the band ever require my services again in the future. I've been fired by equally cordial phone calls that left no mystery around the fact that a certain act and I shan't work together again. And I've been cursed out with venom, vitriol, and invectives, then hung up angrily upon. I'll be honest, I'm not sure which method I prefer.